hard close at 8, so we want to start cleaning up at 7:45. So, thank you all for coming. We had a terrific turnout, and we actually have so many city staff here and a couple of our elected officials, so thank you to them for coming. Okay. So, I'm Allison Sweeney, chair of the Better Bozeman Coalition. Some of you have met, some of you have not yet. Thank you so much for coming, and thank you for staying informed. I'm going to ask the mayor and Commissioner Bodie and then the staff to please introduce themselves. You guys will do roundtable conversations, and hopefully there's one of them at each of your tables. So, Mr. Mayor.
Hey, thank you. They gave Emma and I 10 minutes. I promise we're not going to use all of that time because the goal is to get information rather than try to give information. My name's Terry. I've been a Bozeman resident for about 25, 26 years now, and I was on the commission for 4 years before I ran for mayor. You're deputy mayor for 2 years, and then served 2 years as mayor. I'm in my last year as a mayor, and so I'm really excited to be here. Why are we here? The UDC process, Unified Development Code process, is starting up again, and the goal is to have a deliberate, informed, patient, two-way discussion about this UDC, this 500-page document that says what shall we do, where shall we do, type of stuff. And so we had meetings at various schools, but we also wanted to make sure that we had an opportunity to meet with neighborhood groups. So we met with UNA the other night. We'll be meeting with Cooper Park, Northeast Neighborhood, Midtown, etc. And there are different views in different neighborhoods, and we want to hear those views. This is the first meeting that we're having with an organization that's not like a neighborhood organization. And I'm excited about this meeting particularly because of the depth of knowledge, the really deep dive that you all have done in the UDC. So I'm expecting great questions, and I'm expecting to learn a lot tonight. So that's my spiel. I don't think I used 5 minutes, so I didn't step on Emma's 5 minutes. So Emma Bodie, and the reason that there are two of us here is we are trying to make sure that commissioners hear from different groups at different times in different ways. So Douglas Fisher and Deputy Mayor Morrison went to the UNA meeting. Emma and I are going to this one. There'll be different combinations of folks at different meetings. So hopefully we're getting a good cross-section of things. And then we'll be sharing that information as well. So thank you. I took an extra 30.
Thanks, Terry. Yeah, hello everybody. My name is Emma Bodie. I am the Commission's newest city commissioner. And I'm really excited to be here in front of you all tonight. One of the things that we heard really loud and clear in the previous UDC process was that you all wanted more opportunities to have real dialogues and conversations with city staff and with commissioners. And so this is the first time where we can really sit down and have these kind of small style conversations. So I'm really hopeful that you all will dig in and give us your feedback and have an opportunity to really tease through some of these issues. I don't have a ton more to add from what Terry already said. Thank you for that good introduction. But yeah, just have a lot of excitement for the granularity and the detail with which Better Bozeman Coalition has dug into the UDC, and think that there's a lot to cover. I spent today refreshing myself on your all's document for a neighborhood-friendly Unified Development Code. So I'm primed for that conversation. But yeah, any comments and thoughts are welcome. We have been encouraged by staff to make sure that we are in listening mode tonight. So we're not going to be talking about our preferences or opinions on directions with the UDC. Mostly just hearing your feedback and weighing pros and cons, and also getting more specifics from staff. So just as a context setter for you all. I think I'll pass it back to staff with that.
Yeah, so would city staff like to introduce themselves? Maybe start with the Director of Community Development. Hey everyone, Erin George. You guys, some of you have met me, a lot of you have not, so I'm glad to be here with you all tonight. Thanks for coming out, spending your evening with us. Like everyone said, we're just here to listen. So we're going to be, each of us at a table, and you're walking through the material that Allison has put together for us. It's Kami. So nice to meet everybody, and hopefully enjoy yourselves and feel like we're having some good dialogue tonight. Thank you.
I'm Chris Saunders. I'm the Community Development Manager, so I generally run the Long Range Planning Division for the city. But I think this is my third or fourth round of UDC. So been working on that project since 2002.
Thank you for being here.
I'm Takami Clark. I'm the Communications and Engagement Manager of the city. I just help Allison with pulling this together, and also want to encourage, we do have some seats. There's one right here,
Okay, good.
and we can put some more down. One right there. So please join the conversation.
Okay. All right. Who else do we have here? We have city manager.
Hi everybody, I'm Chuck Wynn, and I am grateful to be here, and I really appreciate, I've often thought that the fabric of our community was its neighborhoods, and to have you all here so passionate and care so much about this place, it really makes me happy. So thank you for being here, and happy to chat with anybody.
And we're lucky we also have Mr. Happel here as well.
Yeah, I'm Henry Hamill. I'm the chairman of the Bozeman Development Board, and we are charged to provide advice to the City Commission on development issues, and the board's been involved in the UDC process. Not since 2002, but we've been involved for quite a while now. So.
Happel was chairman of the board that we all stood in front of and gave 6 hours of public comment asking for the cause. So we're really glad you're still here talking to all of us. So yeah, this past spring, the BBC members authored a report on what we would like to see in a neighborhood-friendly unified development code. And I've just pulled up the table of contents of the report. We're not going to go through the report in detail. Many of those chapters are still areas of concern for a lot of people in the community. What we're going to be doing this evening, on each table, there is a packet with meeting rules. There's a copy of the agenda, and then there are some questions, and we're going to have roundtable discussions in a few minutes. At each table, if someone knows they have nice handwriting, would you please volunteer to be the recorder for your table? The first question is going to ask you something you like about the draft UDC, and we want every answer as you go around the table written down. The next question is going to be something that concerns you about the UDC, every answer written down. And then at the end, there will be an exercise where together as a table, you sort of group those concerns into focus areas. That's what phase 1 of the UDC engagement is about, is identifying what are the topics that concern us most and what are we going to dive into in more detail in phase 2. So you're going to do that as a table. We've created some visual aids here that I'll just go over really briefly. And actually, if Michelle, do you want to talk about yours? Where is Michelle? There we go.
So the first two are regarding parcel, well, the first one is parcel or lot assembly, and the basic idea is that if you don't allow individual residential parcels to be grouped together, then the developments are organically going to be smaller, more diverse, and basically less like what we have seen so far. For example, building across the co-op, from the co-op, all of home base is giant squares, right? And it also helps us keep corporate landowners out of our town, which happen to be a huge issue nationwide. The second one is floor area ratios, also kind of a mansion ban. The idea there is that if you limit the size of the units on the property, you reduce the basic opportunism of people coming in, buying an old home, demolishing it and putting in a mansion because they like the location. So, and it also helps keep prices down, right? If you're ultra wealthy, you want a huge house. You don't want a tiny condo. So, that's the basics of those two.
Okay. So this one is actually pulled out of the community plan and a growth policy, the section, a city of unique neighborhoods. So this poster shows the diversity of housing types. We were told, in the UDC rewrite that we need to allow more housing diversity in the neighborhoods. We need to allow the duplex, the triplex, the fourplex, the multifamily housing. We need to allow that in our neighborhoods and have mixed types of housing. If any of you have read the BBC blog post, Cracking the Code, it's a 2-part blog post about our code, and the basic takeaways are we've built more housing per capita than Austin, Texas. We've built more multifamily housing than any other type. And our code is actually not preventing diversity or supply. So thank you to the GIS department for this amazing map. And it's a little bit out of date, but you can get the basic gist of it. The best mix of housing types, the thing that we're all going for, the thing that urban planners all over the world are trying to bring out of the ground, is actually what we already have in the core of town. So it's just a really striking visual to see that and say, oh, you know what? This is the golden goose. Maybe we need to, confront this evidence and shift our mindset and our approach to maybe protecting that diversity, and then figuring out how we can bring in different nodes of mixtures in other areas. It's going to be difficult because of private covenants, but what can we do to sort of replicate this? Really, because that's what we want. This one, how many of you are familiar with MLUPA, the Montana Land Use Planning Act, SB 382-ish? How many of you went to one of the UDC open houses? Yay! Thank you for going. So at that event, at those open houses, they had a poster where you got to put colored stars next to what would you choose, and there were a bunch of different options. The city tabulated those and released it on their website. So I've just picked out, these are the top 5 yes. Bozeman is ready and willing to do these. These are the big no's. Please don't do this. Nobody, one person voted for like one of these. I mean, they were very unpopular. Those are the least popular. So allow multi-unit dwellings, mixed-use development as a permitted use on lots where office, retail, and commercial are primary permitted uses. And I actually need to ask our community development people how that is not already the case, because I kind of thought it was. And then zone for higher density housing near transit stops, places of employment, education facilities, and other appropriate population centers. And if you actually look at our Streamline is our transit service, if you look at Streamline, it largely coincides with the major arterials. So that's where Bozeman is ready to accept higher density. And I would argue our AHO would be appropriately limited to major arterials. Allow as a permitted use for at least one internal detached accessory dwelling unit on a lot with a single unit dwelling occupied as a primary residence. Now this one, we are already doing that. Provide for zoning that specifically allows or encourages the development of tiny houses as defined in Appendix Q, yada yada. We are already doing this. Cottage housing is allowed in every zone. And then allow as a permitted use for at least a duplex where a single unit dwelling is permitted. And we are already doing this one as well. So 3 out of 5, we're already on track. I think you all know what Bozeman does not want. We don't want ugly buildings. Do not eliminate aesthetic material, shape, bulk, size, floor area ratio, and other massing requirements. We're pretty tired of big boxes. And then, let's see, eliminate or reduce off-street parking requirements. Bozeman, over 90% of the individuals who live here, maybe it's households, 90% of households have a car. We like to go skiing and fishing and climbing and biking and all the things, and you use a car to go there. So even if you're walking to your work, you're walking to the grocery store, you have a car and it lives somewhere. These last 3 were tied for the next least favorite. Do not increase building heights. And there's actually a lot of argument economically why we should not increase building heights. This coming week, on Wednesday the 22nd, Strong Towns. How many of you have heard of Strong Towns?
I was just my friends coming.
Yay, Strong Towns. Charles Marone is going to give a luncheon webinar from 12 to 1, and I'll send out more information this weekend. The BBC did cover the cost for this, so there's a donation QR code up here if you love Strong Towns and you want their message brought to Bozeman. So this, I won't dive in too deeply, but this is the building heights. This is where we're at now. This is proposed in the new code. And then this is the incentives from the current draft of the Affordable Housing Ordinance. So that is what that ordinance is going to do in each zone. And we're talking tall buildings in some places in Bozeman, 173 feet.
What is the tallest building right
I think it's the Armory. Yeah.
now? How tall is it? Tallest buildings are hedges on New Michigan.
Oh, yes, of course. Right.
13 stories, I think. I couldn't give you an exact.
And they're exempt from zoning.
They're exempt from zoning because they're a public lands and institution, they have their own thing. And then this is a growth policy visual aid. I'll send all of these out to you through the BBC, and I'm going to put them on Nextdoor as well. But couple of growth policy references. What do we want our city to look like? What do we want our town to look like? That's what we have to decide with this UDC. Zone edge transitions, if any of you have walked through what I call the canyons on the north side, you know the perpetual ice in the shade of these monoliths. And that's because our zone edge transitions, where there's one zone of high density and the next zone of lower density, the transitions do not apply across a street. And in the core of town where the streets are narrow, that creates adverse impacts on neighborhoods. And our growth policy suggests that we be reflective and use past experience to inform future decisions. This causes a ripple effect of displacement and disinvestment, and it has a harmful effect on our neighborhoods. Another growth policy reference, evaluate increasing the number of stories allowed in centers of employment and activity while also directing height transitions down to the neighborhoods. So if we had these transitions apply across the street towards the neighborhood, we'd be decreasing those impacts by a lot. I also would like to mention, downtown Bozeman, Main Street, that is not the biggest center of employment in Bozeman. So, while there's a desire to put a lot of the density in tall buildings and financial investments right there, it's not actually the highest place of employment. And then, let's see, so one of the things Charles Marone is going to talk about is, the generation of redevelopment. We want to increase, gradually and predictably increase density in developed areas over time, whereas something like this is skipping generations of development, right? It's not incremental. The other thing about this is that the map of our zoning districts, the regulations within the districts have changed over time. So if you're in R4, the regulation what was allowed in that zone 40 years ago is different than what's allowed now. And it's time to reevaluate, those areas that are zoned that. Is that appropriate zoning? Is that what we want? Is this what we want replacing these smaller homes? Okay, that's a conversation we need to have. And then here are some of the zonage requirements that we could include. Stepping back a building. This is actually part of the NCOD, Chapter 3, residential character areas. If there's a building over 2 stories, it should step back. That's in the guidelines, and we are currently unable to enforce that. It also makes for a better building. It's visually more interesting, right? This is a beautiful building, the Armory. Not a residential character area, but you get my point. Privacy. There are privacy measures for balconies and for windows that we can take when you have a building that is next to a lower density residential area so that the people in the smaller homes do not feel like they're in a fishbowl. And it also gives the people on the balcony privacy. You don't need to see your neighbor's garbage can and the kids in the yard and the people's hot tub. You want to see the mountains and the tree canopy in our beautiful town. So there's things we can do. We just need the will to do it. So that's some of the conversation that we're going to be having tonight in your roundtables. And this, for reference, is the proposed building mass and scale for each zone. You've heard me say a million times I don't like this bird's eye view because it doesn't demonstrate the real perceived mass and scale of a human on the ground. But for reference, that's the building types and mass and scale proposed in each zone. So, yeah, I'm gonna have you guys break up into your roundtables now. And someone with good handwriting, please volunteer to be the recorder. And there's an icebreaker question. So go around the table, introduce yourselves, and do the icebreaker, and then we'll get into the meat questions. Room will. Let's go ahead and maybe talk about that. Mr. Wynn, do you want to go first? Did you have any really provocative or interesting questions from this group here that they targeted at you?
I told them, I go, I just try not to do it.
I did take notes. And
Okay.
I will be extremely brief. So I am moved by the passion of the conversation. I am moved by the how dearly neighborhoods are held and what neighborhoods bring to the city. And I think you said it best, and she's from Jackson Hole and left that, and he talks about how there's the community in Jackson Hole is gone. And so that, being a longtime Bozeman resident, I understand that, and I think that I can say, and this isn't a pitch for the commission, but I can say this commission is listening, and this commission is focused on this right now, and city staff works for the commission, and whatever the commission's focused on, we're going to be focused on. So there was a lot of other things, but that's just kind of what hit me as a Bozeman resident for over 40 years, and so I'll stop there. Thanks.
Yay, thank you. Any big takeaways from there?
Yeah, so a couple things. One is when people are passionate about their city, that's a good sign for the city. And so we saw a lot of passion at the table. Some of the themes are absolutely tracking with what we've heard at other meetings. building heights, parking issues, the importance of the NCOD, the tree canopy in our city, et cetera. So I expected to hear that because it's tracking with what else I've heard. One of the comments that was made was we talk about walkable, bikeable neighborhoods where you can go and get something really conveniently without having to go through a whole hassle. But how do we get those in an area other than downtown? How do we replicate that in other areas? And I have thoughts about that, but just to hear that being sort of proposed is we want that. We want our neighborhoods to be holistic and livable and part of our fabric. So we are citizens of Bozeman, we live in a neighborhood. And so that's, heard that loud and clear.
Did you get any burning questions or takeaways?
We did have lots of discussion and questions, but I think I'll just share some of the things I heard, which, like the mayor said, very much tracking with what we heard in the open houses and the online survey. But I heard a lot about the change that everybody has seen happen in Bozeman, and along with that change, they're seeing neighborhoods change and not wanting them to change. Talking about sense of place, quality of life in communities, clarifying the NCOD, strengthening environmental protection, and also the AHO, affordable housing incentives. So a lot of similar things to what we heard at the open houses. So it's really good stuff. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Sonneman.
We talked about a variety of things, including some parallel projects that are underway, the affordable housing update, the landmarks project, the integrated water resources plan. All of those are independent of this work, but obviously strongly connected. There were some thoughts about areas outside of what the regulatory environment could do, like land trusts as a way of dealing with some of the issues on affordability, and then an idea of the ability to divide existing structures down into smaller units within existing areas.
Our table talked a lot about how we all want affordable housing, but was really grappling with feeling like we're giving too much to get it, and wanting to make sure that we are investing in and honoring neighborhood character. And kind of the last place that we landed on is how can we put more emphasis on neighborhoods and make sure that neighborhoods are empowered and have agency in this process.
Thank you. Okay, Tiffany, Apple.
Yeah, we're gonna let Diane,
There
there she is, such a nice job summarizing.
Okay. So we talked about the same sorts of themes that you all did. The three big buckets were needing to preserve our neighborhood character, the fact that parking in our town is needed, largely because we don't have an effective mass transit system yet, so it's unrealistic to think that it's not necessary. And we talked about the fact that we really need to map what we care about, including our creeks and nature and so forth, but map everything it is that we care about as a community so that then we can effectively protect it. And our zoning needs to reflect that. So as it relates to the neighborhood character bucket, there were lots of things that came under that. We did talk about the affordable housing as well, and the fact that we would like to see different zones with different incentives, like what's appropriate in a greenfill development may be different from what's appropriate in an infill development, and we'd like to see different incentives for those. We would like to eliminate the current incentives for upzoning in our historic neighborhoods. Right now, we are concentrating change in those historic districts that we value because we have upzoned them and made that attractive to the developers. The NCOD is not protecting those districts the way we want it to. And we would like to create better height caps and better transitions between zones.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming in.
Thanks for putting it together.